Steinitz would have fainted at seeing this. Quite a lot of players of 100, 150 years back would have fainted. In fact, I think a lot of players, even 30 or 40 years back, would have fainted to see all this.
Now it's time to do our recap of the game Levon Aronian and Leinier Dominguez. And a little bit of warning here, if you don't know how to play this opening with black, please don't try to do it at home because it is all computer lines and a very sharp position. Started with 1, d4, d5, and after c4, black accepted this sacrifice, allowed white to have a very strong center, but black is not going to give up the pawn, which was just captured, a4, c6. And here we have, after knight c3 attacking b5, queen b6 move, which allows white to play knight d5. We should tell us about this opening. How come that it works, that white can bring all these pieces by the tempo and black is still okay?
Well, as I mentioned earlier in our commentary, Steinitz would have fainted at seeing this. Quite a lot of players of 100, 150 years back would have fainted. In fact, I think a lot of players, even 30 or 40 years back, would have fainted to see all this. But this is new computer stuff. It shows that you can really test your limits in these positions. Mm-hmm. So black actually has to respond e5. Everything is about time. Bishop e5, knight d7. Now we're attacking the bishop. So even if your bishop slips back, then knight gf6, threatening an exchange, obviously. So white has to play knight c7 check, king d8. If f3, then by the way, you play g5.
It's a good looking move. If white takes this pawn, black can take the c7
knight and so on. So you play, instead of f3, you play knight a8, queen takes e4 check, knight e2, queen a8, f3. And this makes my heart sink because this pawn is coming forward and it's not defending the pawn on e4. But it is necessary for white to proceed with this play. Black went knight d5. We thought bishop g5 was a good decision because it passes the move to black and says, you have to commit something. Go ahead and commit in case you have not prepared this at home. Black has knight 7 to f6. Black could have played bishop e7. Black could have moved the king. But to be honest, I thought f6 was reasonable enough. The only other move which seemed reasonable to me was knight 7 to f6.
Yeah,
f6,
after f6.
He came back.
Bishop came back on d2, and here black played bishop d6, developing move, knight g3, and queen b8. We like this idea to hit on this diagonal. Also, there was a move like rook e8, and it's a funny line after rook e8. There is a check. White can play king f2 or bishop e2. In case if white goes with king e2, we had here a very fancy move suggested by Vishy to play knight c5 and to give this kind of checkmate here, or white has to give up the bishop, and that's losing position. Although that here after rook e8 check, white could play bishop e2, and this was here the line. Instead, black went for queen b8. Levon played really fast here, king f2 and bishop e2, and after bishop c7, here white came up with a brilliant idea to run away with the king. Right now, king g1 and king h1 is idea of white. Black here played knight e5. Which is why he didn't take this pawn on d4 with a check.
Well, king h1. And then what are you supposed to do? Are you going to go bishop f2 or what exactly? Maybe bishop f2.
This allows a check on a5, and those.
And I go bishop a5 check, knight d5 to f6. But white has such compensation here. Even knight e4 might be good compensation for white. So it's a quite a strange decision for me, this bishop c7, b6 plan. Initially, it looked sophisticated because of the d4 pawn, but in fact, white simply tosses this pawn with rook e1, king g1, and runs away. And finally, you come to this sad thing that this pawn that you made this elaborate plan to capture, you don't really want to capture it at all. So even knight e5, whereupon Levon proceeded with king h1, knight c6, b3. And to be honest here, I thought it was game over because I thought the white's advantage was huge. It turns out white's advantage is huge, but not in any self-evident way. White's advantage depends on lots of carefully executed tactics. This is what we found, because we found that when we tried to find this elusive win, well, you go wrong much more easily than you get it right. But anyway, we went bishop takes b5.
Bishop d7 was here.
Yeah, rook e1, bishop d7. We were wondering about rook e1, bishop e1, knight d4. And I think this is better for white, but not in any obvious way. At the very least, when we tried to find the first win, the computer evaluation kept on dropping. So there possibly is just a very good move here, but when we were going over it, it wasn't trivial. So very good practical chances. Anyway, Dominguez went bishop d7. So now Levon went bishop e1.
And now he captured the pawn on d4, and after bishop takes the bishop, c2, intermediate move. After queen d3, now black
I
captured.
thought, what was it? Was I happy with knight e2? I thought knight e2 was strong, right? After king e8.
King e8 here in this position, yes.
Knight e2 I thought was strong. Surprisingly, I mean, I thought this was just white's idea, because if you play knight f, no, not knight f4, if you go queen e5, then we take on d4. You have to take with the bishop, because if you take with the queen,
takes and
rook c1, and it's game over.
Yeah, bishop d2. And if bishop takes, then rook c1 here.
Bishop b2. And this crucial move, bishop g3. And I thought this was winning.
Yeah, beautiful move hitting the queen. And then next move, white will give a check on e-file and then take on c2. Very, very sharp position. And here in this position, why we liked knight e4 more than knight f5, which has the same idea, because this knight f5 allows black to play queen f4, which helps black to promote the pawn on c1. So complicated position. Instead of knight move here, Levon went for bishop d2. Very likely he wanted to avoid queen f4. And now we have queen e5. Rook c1,
and then f5. F5. And now Levon made a quiet move. But here, white's advantage keeps increasing, but not in an obvious way. I mean, after queen g8 check, king e7, I initially thought I had misplayed it, because I couldn't see. I thought f4 must be winning, which was my original idea, f4, queen f4, and then something strong, but I couldn't see there's something strong.
There was the moment when I think the engines were suggesting here to take also h7 pawn and then to play queen g7.
And this is a zugzwang, because you cannot move the knight on e3. You cannot move the knight on d4. Because if you take on, for instance, if you play knight takes b3, I have queen g8 check, forking, winning the piece. And the knight doesn't have any other good squares to go. The black queen cannot move, because if it goes to f2, queen g5 wins the knight. And it doesn't have any other squares to go to. And somehow black is tied up, but to find a line like this is basically impossible. So we saw that the position was winning, but we did not find this point of queen g7 at the end. Unbelievable stuff. And I think it's quite revealing, because both of us tried to find it for the better part of 3 or 4 minutes, and just a check, and where's the win? And it gives you a sense that even if the computer says something is winning, it's very far from being so.
Yes.
So
yeah, the game continued here. Queen c8, king f7, queen d7. And now after this check, here Dominguez made king g6 move, which we consider to be a mistake because right after f4, here black cannot capture this f4 pawn as there is a check on e8 and white can pick up the knight on e3, and this is losing position for black.
but why did he not go king g8 is the question we were asking ourselves.
In case of king g8.
No, king g8 and f4 wins because of queen e8 mate.
Yeah, there's a checkmate, even better. Very
And
likely there was
f8.
move king f8, which was still holding the position. Anyways, black played here king g6. We had f4. We know that this pawn is now untouchable. And here Dominguez, with time trouble on the clock, he decided to trade the queens, and also there was not any better alternative. So we do had this endgame where white made very clean move here, knight e2, did not really give up the f pawn and still keep this threat on the board. Bishop takes knight, and then to take c2 pawn.
And even though Leinier found some amazing knight jumps, it's only a matter of time before the white rook escapes this trap that it's in and gets out.
Yes, after knight c1 here, black decided to resign, as in this position there are several ways how white can win, starting with bishop e2 to hit this pawn and then get the rook on the 7th rank, or to get the king on f3 and then to try to trade the dark square bishop. But Rishi, one more time, we hear you suggested very nice idea how to be checkmated here.
Well, there's a nice blunder in the position, which is king f3, knight takes d2 check, rook d2, and knight e1 is made.
Yes.
So.
Yes, this did not really happen. Instead, as we mentioned, after knight e4, we had knight c1, knight captures, and after bishop captures here, we had a resignation. So that was your rapid recap of the semifinals at FIDE Grand Prix 2022, Leg 1.